Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. I spoke about this before. I think it was more me randomly rambling about this situation. I saw this article. I thought it would be nice to go over it, so please bear with me as we go through it because there's a lot to cover. If you've been here before, you know that my thoughts tend to get jumbled depending on how rapidly or slow or oddly that I'm speaking. So I want to try and cover everything properly in this video because I think this is something that needs to be spoken about, even if we don't really want to. Like I said, I spoke about this a bit before, but I think it was me trying to rush through it in order to kind of move quickly with the day's news. So anyway, without further ado, Bitcoin advocate Andreas Antonopoulos offered his opinion on Bitcoin's ETFs in a rather foreboding video released on the 14th of August, so that is now a couple of days ago from now. He first explained the concept of an ETF, or an exchange-traded fund, as a fund that has a custodian or manager that creates a special financial instrument that is similar to a stock. In the case of Bitcoin's ETFs, the instrument is a fund that holds Bitcoin and sells shares in a Bitcoin reserve that represents the price of Bitcoin as a stock that can be traded through regular brokerage accounts on the stock market. The custodian holds the actual Bitcoin and the customer buys a share in the funds without having to navigate the often rigorous and complex process of registering for cryptocurrency exchanges, completing Know Your Customer protocols, and familiarizing themselves with encrypted keys and wallets. On this entire part, when it comes, so as you may have noticed, we've been speaking a lot about Bitcoin ETFs, especially with all the news that we've had from the CBOE and ICE and about Bakkt and everything else that's trying to create their own Bitcoin ETF, pushing the entire idea of Bitcoin futures to the side for a moment. What it comes down to is, and this is what I think I mentioned, is that I was listening to a podcast and there was a woman who was talking. I'm pretty sure the podcast is called Unconfirmed, if I'm not mistaken. And she was talking to someone else and they were talking about why a lot of people are not happy with the idea of a Bitcoin ETF or many other funds getting into the cryptocurrency space. Just to put this first out there, Bitcoin was originally meant to be something that was for everyone. It was by a person or people that was meant for everyone around the world to use freely. I think that has completely come to an end. And what we have now is the people behind the stock market, but people behind previous financial crashes and all these other things that are in the traditional world of finance. They figured out what cryptocurrency is, that it's here to stay, and they are determined to make it stay. On the entire topic of them allowing it or making it stay, we have something where when we do, it's going to happen at some point. When we do eventually have a Bitcoin ETF or an ETF that is tied to Bitcoin in some way, one of the major concerns is that if you have, if the fund has to hold the actual Bitcoin, this is why we were talking about physical Bitcoin ETFs and why they would be good for the price. In that, in order to have this fund be not legal or to be activated, however you kind of want to say it, the fund actually has to hold the Bitcoin, which means that the supply of Bitcoin would become lower than it actually is, as this fund and other ETFs would slowly open up their doors and try to get as much Bitcoin as they possibly can before their competitors can. On the same exact note, with these ETFs and also for futures contracts as well, you are able to, how do I say this? Pretty much you can write on a piece of paper that you are selling Bitcoin to someone based on the current price of Bitcoin. And this is where you kind of are able to bet for or against Bitcoin's price in a number of these funds that are going to be floating around. The problem is let's say I am a fund and I have the money and I bought 5,000 Bitcoin. But because I'm able to sell shares against the price of the Bitcoin that I'm holding, I would then, in theory, be able to create, let's say, 10,000 shares according to the price of what I am holding. And this leads to a situation where we are going to probably have situations where Bitcoin itself will be suppressed simply because it can, and the people who are running these things are going to be able to make more money off of it. In that, if you hold 100,000 Bitcoin because you are the richest person in the entire world and you decide to have one of these funds, you can essentially then produce around 1 billion pieces of paper, let's say they call them pieces of paper, saying that essentially there's 1 billion pieces of Bitcoin floating around, which we know cannot happen. So that is one of the major problems that we're going to be having, and that's one of the thoughts that I have for this. And it's going to create a problem because if you have a scarce product or digital currency, let's say Bitcoin, for instance, that has around 17 million circulating right now, but you have someone who has the power to be able to create similar to something like an IOU that pretty much says, hey, pay me back for this whenever this happens, whatever the case might be, and you have billions of them out there, you then create a situation where there is where we have a billion Bitcoin kind of floating around. I hope I made that clear. Like I said, my thoughts get jumbled up sometime, but I think you kind of understand what I'm saying. Let's say you own a house and you can create a piece of paper that says to other people that you own 25 houses. You don't own 25 other houses, but you don't expect them to all cash out at the exact same time and be able to try to receive their funds all at the exact same time. This is kind of along the lines of what it is. The cryptocurrency space has lauded the inevitable arrival of ETFs as a crucial event that will greatly increase the market cap of cryptocurrency and essentially save cryptocurrency investors and traders from the current bear market, taking cryptocurrency to the next level as a financial market. In his video, Antonopoulos outlined in no uncertain terms what he sees as the dangers of Bitcoin's ETFs, citing the market manipulation that took over the price action of gold as an example. I myself am also guilty of this. I mean, not even that I'm human and that we all make mistakes. We know for a fact that when we get ETF approval, that the price is going to go up. That is more or less the fact right now. When we have proper clarification, we've had days where we thought we were going to get approval about a week before, and the price went up by around 10, 15, 17, 18%. And that was before an actual approval. And when we had rejections, the price slumped back down to where it was before. So we know that this is going to happen. The problem is that if you look historically at the gold markets, gold and silver are some of the most manipulated things in the entire world. I think it's by JP Morgan Chase, and I want to say Bank of America as well. I can't remember. There are two banks that pretty much control gold and silver and do with it as they wish, especially as these entities are also buying up tons of the gold and silver market themselves, so they can sell and buy at will, and they move the price however they want. And even if they're only making around 1.5% on a weekly basis, they are still making billions of dollars because they control the entire thing. So it leads us into the idea of a situation that I've spoken about before. And I said, it makes me sad, but I think it's just human nature. I don't think a lot of people are going to get into the cryptocurrency space until we pass the $1 trillion valuation, and even more. I don't think people will touch normal people. Will touch Bitcoin until we hit around over a $1 trillion valuation for the market as well, because people have a tendency to go to kind of what's shiny and what's big and what's expensive. And the sad part is that they're not getting into it right now, because what's kind of happened is the bear market, if you want to call it that we are experiencing right now, is all completely coordinated. I think every day just solidifies in my head that this is definitely something that has happened. We know for a fact, if you are still one of the people who has been listening since the very beginning, I do applaud you. And I don't mean since the beginning of this video. I mean since October, November, December of last year. If you've been here, you've hung on. You are one of the very few people, because there are a lot of people who have left the market because they have been thrown off the tree. They have been terrified into thinking that cryptocurrencies are a scam, that something's wrong with them. The prices have gone down. What's interesting is that a lot of people, especially if you weren't into finance before, for some reason, a lot of people who get into cryptocurrencies believe that prices should go up forever. That's not how anything works. Prices never on anything, anywhere, all over the entire world, on any type of object, go up forever. And people who got into Bitcoin around the time when it was $18,000 and the prices have slumped down to where they are now, about 95% of them have left the market and they feel completely discouraged and will probably never touch cryptocurrencies again. And for the small fragment of them that actually will, they won't get back into the market until prices are higher than what they got in last time, FOMOing into the market. But at that point, prices will be almost unobtainable from where they were before. So this is what Antonopoulos actually had to say about the entire ETF situation. He said, and I quote, "I'm going to burst your bubble. I know a lot of people want to see Bitcoin ETFs because Lambos and to the moon and all that. I think it's a terrible idea. I still think it's going to happen, but I think it's a terrible idea. I'm actually against Bitcoin ETFs," end quote. Apart from the potential of increased market manipulation by major market makers, as is seen in the commodities markets, Antonopoulos is concerned over the issue of consensus. Like I said, I don't think there's nothing standing in the way of ETFs or futures or mutual funds or hedge funds or retirement funds or any other type of funds getting into Bitcoin now. I think it's a matter of whenever the SEC finally writes on paper. I was reading something a day or two ago, and they were talking about how why they believe that the price of Bitcoin and the price of Ethereum have not gone up yet, even after the SEC declared that both of them were not securities. And it pretty much comes down to, as of now, I don't think, and this was in the article as well, that there's nothing written on or in stone, if you will. Nothing is written on a piece of paper. Nothing is written on a website that says that these two coins or any of the other coins are not securities. So we had a bit of a boost before where the price of Ethereum kind of went up a tiny bit, but it's more or less slumping because we don't have any concrete regulatory approval for all of these things happening. And I know, once again, to touch on the topic of regulations in general, it's bittersweet. We, for so long, wanted a world where I don't care if it's XRP or if it's Litecoin or if it's Ethereum or EOS or even Bitcoin, not taking over the world, but being a major player in finance. But just like everything else, it's very easy to manipulate markets in that you can use scare tactics. You can terrify people. We know a couple of months ago, you can Google this, that the Polish government paid, I think, 2 or 3 YouTubers to create videos and things on their platform, on their YouTube channel, to talk negatively about Bitcoin, to scare other people in Poland from getting into Bitcoin. When you do these things, you ask, why would they scare people? Why would they even care about it? And it's pretty much because I don't know for certain, but it's pretty clear that governments and other crypto is controlled by rich people now. I don't know how to dance around that topic anymore. This is why I say, if you are in now, you are very lucky. I know I've repeated that multiple times, but you have to understand that you really are. A lot of people aren't. I don't want to say they're not smart enough. It's just human nature. They've been terrified out of the market, and they're not going to get back in. And the people who are still in right now, this is why I talk about the entire over-the-counter market and stuff like that, and trying to figure out exactly not who owns it, because, we're supposed to be anonymous and not really know who's dealing with what, but figuring out how much Bitcoin is actually being sold over the counter. I don't think there's a lot anymore. I don't think that over the last 7-8 months that rich people have been twiddling their thumbs and waiting for the price to get a lot lower. There are people who have had interviews on CNBC and any other news outlet out there. When they talk about these things and when they talk about how much crypto they have or their funds that they're starting that are $100 million funds that are going to be holding Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, they're no longer holding these holding fiat money. They're now holding just crypto, and they're waiting for a good time to release these funds or to let other people know that the funds are active, and they're buying all these things over the counter. Let's try and move on a little bit. Got a little bit off tangent. Bitcoin holders essentially, so this was what he said about consensus. Bitcoin holders essentially have the right to vote on certain issues based on which exchanges they choose to trust their coins with, which fork they support, etc. He said, if there is ever a fork debate, which is very likely to happen again in any cryptocurrency, then the fund that controls that Bitcoin now has a very large voice. Their shareholders don't. They don't get to choose which fork the fund is going to follow in a Bitcoin debate. We already saw that level of influence during the August 1st fork. Users activated software forks called Bitcoin Cash. The scaling debate, largely custodial exchanges, had a very strong voice in the ecosystem. They were able to decide if they were going to support or not on behalf of 10 million customers. An ETF will do that, and it will do that on an even bigger scale. For those who were not here a year ago, when Bitcoin first forked, there was a major discussion on would the fork happen and who would support the fork. That was a very major thing because it pretty much comes down to consensus. This is kind of what it all falls down to. If you, when we have coins and we give them to an exchange and you look at the coin addresses for the things that are floating around, you see that certain exchanges or certain addresses have millions of Bitcoin inside of them, or hundreds of thousands of them, maybe 300, 400, 500,000. People are trying to figure out for a while who these addresses belong to, and they belong to the largest crypto exchanges that we have out there. And this is why they all came to more or less a consensus that they would all accept the fork. We had a couple of exchanges who said that they wouldn't. We had Coinbase who said that they were not going to support Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Gold. And then when people threatened to sue them, they happened to magically support it and say that they were going to give people their Bitcoin Cash as well. When we get into a situation that we're in right now, and I told you guys before, even though the price of Bitcoin is relatively high, this does not stop other people who are very well off from buying large amounts of it. But when they hold large amounts of it, they also control Bitcoin. They also control the network. Don't think that these people are just buying up fragments of Bitcoin. They're buying whole Bitcoin, probably 100, 300, 400, 500 Bitcoin at a time. They are heavily invested, I'm sure, in Bitmain, the people who are also mining Bitcoin. And this is why there's the discussion around Bitmain releasing, what was it called? Their IPO. They're trying to go public. They're trying to get public funding and institutional funding. And when they do all of this and all of these people are backing them and they already control anywhere from 42 to 51% of all the Bitcoin that is created, we then have a situation where the people who Bitcoin was created for no longer really have control over it. And this is where can't think of the word. I'm torn. I think this is the easiest way to say it because I love the cryptocurrency space. I love what it does. I am very passionate about cryptocurrencies. I think it's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to us. But in just around 9 years, we went from something that was for the people that is going to exclusively be for the rich. And I made a video on that as well. I can't remember what the name of it was. So it's how do I say this? We're at a crossroads now where you can choose to love or hate Bitcoin. You can choose to follow the original idea of Bitcoin and what it was made for. And this is kind of why we have a lot of other forks. This is why people have gone or moved to the other forks, because they believe that it's more aligned with what Satoshi Nakamoto would have wanted. Or you can side with the people who are going to make money. And I don't mean to sound funny or satirical. I mean this in the most honest way. You're going to have to decide, and it's not even just, it doesn't even really come down to like morals anymore. It doesn't really come down to like the good or the bad side. It comes down to, or rather, I'm going to say in my own opinion, this is what I've said before, I don't think that Bitcoin is going to fail. I think we're beyond that point. I think in the middle of 2016, maybe early 2017, if you had told me that I think that Bitcoin was going to fail, I would have said absolutely. This is why I still kind of believe that a flippening could happen. I think Ethereum is kind of on the side right now. But what's happened over the last couple of months with all these people who are so intent on making Bitcoin the number one coin of the entire world. We have the co-founder of PayPal talking about that he believes that Bitcoin is going to be the currency of the internet. I think Bitcoin is definitely here to stay. I hope you get what I'm saying. And I don't mean to be doomy or gloomy. I like to have these discussions with all of you because I think it's very important. We can't always focus on Lambos and how rich we're going to be and the things that we're going to buy and the places that we're going to go. We know for a fact, especially if you've been paying attention to all the news that I've been reading over the last couple of months, that rich people control Bitcoin at this point. They control the cryptocurrency space. They are the ones who are pushing the price down. They've done it very successfully. They moved a lot of people out of the market. And I don't know. I guess just kind of what I have to say on this little tidbit. They're going to be able to control Bitcoin more than they already do now, because as time goes on, they can just buy more and more of it. And we're going to have a situation where they can do what they will with Bitcoin, if that makes any sense to you. The more you control of it, the more you control the entire system. The same exact thing with gold and silver. If you control 80% of all the gold and silver in the world, you have a say in what the price of it is going to be. Centralized fund managers having millions of votes in the Bitcoin ecosystem, allowing for manipulation in price action. Scaling debates and forks is the main concern for Antonopoulos, who foresees disagreements over forks between major ETFs, leading to splits, forming currencies akin to what he calls corporate Bitcoin. This is, like I said, it's going to happen. I hope I made myself clear. I feel like I say things, and then when I listen back to the video sometimes, I realize that I completely missed about 5 things that I wanted to say. This isn't saying that people who are into finance are evil, or that they are these dark, brooding characters sitting in dark castles, stroking their hairless cat, or whatever you kind of want to say. I mean, it's like there are a lot of Bitcoin maximalists who are dead set on Bitcoin being the number one thing, but it also comes with the philosophy that Bitcoin is meant to be something that's not controlled or 51% controlled by anyone. And we are well beyond that point. I told you guys before, if you look at the wallets that are out there, it's 96% of all Bitcoin is controlled by 4% of people. So do you follow the original idea of following other decentralized cryptocurrencies that do not have control over them, or do you follow the people who are going to make money? And I mean, it sounds easy for some people, but I think we have crossed the point of no return where Bitcoin was laughed at for a very long time, and now it is this entity that people are claiming is going to go to $1 million in the next 7 years. If you can think about how insane that is, think about the wealth that's going to be created from the people who are holding 100,000 Bitcoin. Think about how rich they're going to be. Think about the influence that they're going to have over the world. I don't know. I like to think about these things sometimes. I have a friend who says that I sound very like sci-fi-y, like some type of dystopian universe. But you have to understand, we just had the first $1 trillion valuation for a company. I think Apple is the first $1 trillion company, which is completely mind-boggling. We have people buying art right now for almost $1 billion. I think something actually sold for maybe over $1 billion. We have people, we know that within our lifetime, even if we didn't have cryptocurrencies, some of the richest people in the world, if their wealth continues to accelerate at the same exact rate that it's going right now, that's not even them creating or making any other businesses, we're going to have a trillionaire within our lifetime, not our kids' lifetime. Before we hit the grave, there's going to be a trillionaire walking on this planet. And then by the time we do have kids, it's probably multi-trillionaires and stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of what I'm really saying. I hope I made myself clear. I know I sound a bit, that's why I said I ramble a bit, but I have these thoughts in my head and I think they should be discussed, because Bitcoin isn't just about making money. It's something a lot deeper. When you think that something was created in 2009, and then by the year, 2023, 2025, that they're projecting it, that Bitcoin could potentially, based on its rate of growth, be the number one coin or currency in the entire world, replacing the US dollar and the euro. That's definitely something for a discussion. In a situation where authorities are pressuring the community to make Bitcoin less private and more transparent, it could be the case that an ETF would feel obliged to comply with regulatory pressure and refuse to adopt privacy measures, creating a separate corporate Bitcoin market. This is the last thing that I'm going to talk about. I told you guys before that I was very excited about Bitcoin privacy. Sorry about that. Yeah, I go on Medium a lot. Things about privacy in the Bitcoin space, and how people are creating things in order to make sure that Bitcoin is private for everyday use. What I'm afraid of that's going to probably happen is when we have all the Bitcoin controlled by a large number of people. And we remember, for those who weren't here before, I said one of my biggest dreams right now is for every coin to become private. I would love if we had, I love the idea of making money, but I also love the idea of being in control of your own money. And I don't think that people should have the right to see what you do on your daily basis. That's not saying that everyone is going to be doing something that's illegal, but I think that everyone should have the right to at least a bit of privacy when it comes to what they buy, where they're going, who they're hanging out with, what they may be watching at the movies. I think there's definitely a bit of room for that. When all the Bitcoin is controlled by a large number of people, when these ETFs when they hit the ground running and they start buying hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin at once in order to secure their spot in the cryptocurrency space, like I always say, all these rich people know each other. They hang out with each other. They have dinner together. There was actually something, and I don't have it in this video, and I'm not going to make a video about it because it's a bit too crazy for me, even for me, where someone connected the dots and they found that all the people who are into cryptocurrency right now actually do know each other. And I mentioned that before. I said I thought that was something, I assumed that a couple of people knew each other, but it turns out that a lot of these people all went to school together. They worked in the same projects together. The people who created Ripple know the people who created Ethereum, know the people who created Cardano, know the people who created Neo and a whole bunch of other coins. They've all met at some point, and they're actually all friends. Anyway, swinging back to the normal side, when all of this is gobbled up and it comes time for Bitcoin proposals, or BIPs, BIPS, to be not mandated, or to be run out or put on to the network, and people have to approve them. What happens when we try to have a private Bitcoin ecosystem, or have Bitcoin privacy, so that when you send money back and forth between Bitcoin or Litecoin or any of the other coins that are going to be going through the atomic swaps, and it's time for people to essentially vote yes or no, and all the people who are holding Bitcoin want to make sure that there is no privacy, that it is transparent for governments, that it is run through know your customer and all these other things, and they vote no. And we try to get these things put onto Bitcoin, and every single time it just comes out as more of a no, especially because of regulatory pressure. All of this, I think we are, how do I say this? I think we're 5 years too far, 3 years too late. I think the cryptocurrency space where it is right now, I didn't expect any of this to happen. Everything that's happening right now, and I mean every single event that has happened in 2018, I didn't think we would have until around 2023. I didn't think crypto would mature this fast. I guess money really does talk. A lot of people have figured out that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are there to make money. And when I say 3 years too late, we've had news about these upgrades for quite some time. We've been talking about these for years. Bitcoin privacy is not a brand new thing that's just come about in 2018. This has been spoken about when Bitcoin, let's say around 2011, 12, 13. If you went into the original Bitcoin website, or you were looking for what is Bitcoin, I don't know if you guys remember, there was like a cute little video. It was like a minute and a half, and they spoke about what Bitcoin was. And one of the things that they said, that it was a private currency. It was heralded as this currency that no one could trace, no one could find, no one knew what was going to happen to it, who was sending this coin back and forth, and it was completely great. Around 2014, 15, they actually made a new video, and the word privacy was completely taken out of it. So since then, a lot of people have been working on it, but for some reason, it is appearing to be a bit more difficult to execute than previously thought. And part of the problem is that if these things continue to take 2 or 3 more years, like I said, I'm not a coder. I understand that these things are very difficult to build upon. That's not me saying that we should have them now, or rather, I wish we had them now. But you can't do like a horse and you whip them on the back and tell them to go a bit faster. These things take time, but we're at the point where there is no more time left. It's the same exact thing for Ethereum. I keep saying Ethereum needs to kind of get it together. We've been promised things for around 2 or 3 years at this point, and none of them are being delivered. And at some point, we're going to come to a major crossroads, and I think it's in 2019 already, where the things that were spoken about in 2015 that people said they were working on are going to have to be activated, and activated very fast. We're going to need a number of side chains, or things even built on top of the Bitcoin network, that will allow us to have privacy, that will allow atomic swaps between more than just Bitcoin and Litecoin. I think that happened one time. We're going to need all of these things as quick as possible. This isn't, I didn't mean to sound so dire, as if like the world is ending in a couple of weeks or something like that. But it's, you guys kind of get what I'm saying. Bitcoin is going to be controlled and is controlled by the higher ups at this point. There's no question about that. But it's going to be, if Bitcoin does continue on its growth trajectory that it is right now, and even if it goes down by like 2 or 3%, I think Bitcoin is actually well far ahead of where it's even supposed to be. This is why I said we're 5 years too far. We're going to enter a situation where, if the world's debt does become crippling and does completely fall apart, and the world is looking, or many other countries are looking for a solution, and they end up choosing cryptocurrencies, and maybe if they choose Bitcoin, if Bitcoin has Lightning activated, which has also been in the wings for around 2 or 3 years right now, and we have to, this is all obviously a wild theory, come back to this video in 4 years and please leave a comment below, then we're going to have something where nothing is private, where everything that we have to buy or sell, or where we go, or who we're hanging out with, or things that we are buying for loved ones or buying for ourselves, are known to everyone. They're known on the blockchain. And even we know now that not even government agencies, it's actually fairly simple to be able to track Bitcoin transactions. And this is why we had news a couple of days ago from, who was it? Not a regulatory agency. It was some type of like crime fighting thing in the United States, where they said that they want criminals to continue using Bitcoin because they can easily track it. I guess this is kind of all that I have to say. I didn't mean to make a doomy and gloomy video, as I like to call them. It's just something that actually has to be discussed. I love the cryptocurrency space, but I am torn sometimes, just to tell you guys, between this lovely space that we had a couple of years ago. All the tribal talk aside, for whichever coin you may love or whichever coin you may like, I don't think that Bitcoin Private is going to be the number one coin anytime soon. I know that Bitcoin Private is being spoken about as the save all, or the thing that we need in order to be able to be in control of our transactions. As of now, it is Bitcoin. I wish that things moved a little bit quicker, and I don't really know. I don't know what else to say. This isn't me talking negatively or down. I know a lot of people write in the comment section, "Oh, you sound so sad." I'm not sad. It's just more realistic. I think we have bursts and periods where we talk about the growth of the cryptocurrency market, and it's very exciting because we get to see who's getting into the space, who is going to be doing this and that, who's integrating this, when can we do this as a payment option. But then we also have to remember that a lot of the people who are getting into the cryptocurrency space are the same exact people who crashed the market in 2008 and 2000 and 1987, and then the 70s, and then the 40s, and so on and so forth. It's just a long legacy, and this is why I thought it was interesting a couple of days ago when financial players or major people in the traditional markets were talking about that they expected crypto to be the stock market 2.0. It's nice to hear that. You know, it's great. We like to be validated in like our own little space, and then you kind of get the inkling on your neck. Okay, that means that they're also buying up stuff if they have some type of faith in it, and they could also do with it as they wish. I think the future is bright for cryptocurrencies. I think it is great that we've come this far. I think there has been a relatively long or large euphoric period. And this is why you notice there were a lot of conversations about the other cryptocurrency developers saying that they were glad that prices went down this year because it gives them time to be able to develop their projects. And I hope that some of these are at least developing something with privacy features. There was supposed to be something like this on Ethereum as well. Ethereum was supposed to have a lot of other updates, and I hope that they've been working on them diligently, because very soon, potentially, we could enter a space where crypto is completely mainstream. People are making tons of money about it every single day. It's on every... Can you imagine watching the nighttime news, the 10, 11 o'clock news, and they're just talking about cryptocurrencies the same way they talk about other financial products? Because, you know, there's always that little segment where they talk about this happened in stocks today, this happened and so. Imagine in 3, 4, 5 years where there's always a 3-minute segment where they talk about the price of Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin went up by 1% today and is completely stable. And this country somewhere in this continent decided today to completely integrate Bitcoin as their financial system. It's all kind of crazy to think about. I still think this is not me telling you what to do, and I'm tired of saying that phrase. I really am. But read between the lines. There's a lot of lines here, everything I just read through. Crypto is going somewhere. It may not be where a lot of people want it to go to, but I still think that is going to make a lot of people money. And I think it's a shame that a lot of people who have a chance to get into it into some capacity now are not getting into it because of fear. And once again, that's not me telling you to dump your money into the market. All of these things going on are not by accident. I don't think it's nefarious. I think human greed plays a huge part in things like ETFs and the stock market, and people just kind of want to make tons of money. Watch the movie The Big Short. It's Sunday, the time that I'm making this video. If you go home, or if you are home, if you have nothing else to do, watch the movie The Big Short. It'll make a lot of sense. Also, The Wolf of Wall Street is a very good one as well. You'll if you haven't watched them before, you'll learn a lot exactly how human greed works. Humans sometimes can't stop themselves. I think that's all I pretty much have to say. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sure people have their own thoughts on this. It's very interesting to think about being in the market right now and seeing where we've been with these corporations and entities and stock markets making fun of us. They thought we were nerds sitting in garages typing on computers, and now they all completely love it, and they're trying to push all these projects out to be able to make billions and billions of dollars. All right, everyone, I think that's pretty much what I have to say on all of this. I hope by 2019 that something positive has happened. That's not a word. Has happened in the way of Bitcoin privacy, atomic swaps, and I hope that at least some of the top 20 coins have moved over to privacy-centric models in order to give people back a bit of their own freedom. I guess that's the best way of saying that. Thank you once again for watching and or listening. Once again, sorry if I sounded down. I'm not down at all, I promise you. I'm actually having a very good day. I just saw this article and I thought it had to be spoken about because we sometimes don't focus on the real things that are happening in the market that are going to be affecting all of us. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys are having a great day, morning, afternoon, and or evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. Thank you once again for watching and or listening. I do appreciate it. And I will talk to you all soon. See you.